Good evening. You look a man direct in the face when you talk to him.
There's a situation. It's serious.
Mrs. O'Dwyer was abducted. You know who did this?
I don't have a name.
How many of them do you think there are?
Matter, you have no chance against any number of them.
We're making a 5-day journey in 3 days, riding along and sleeping the bare minimum.
Don't be scared. I am a friend.
You aren't.
Bless us, O Lord, and these thy gifts, which we are about to receive.
Ambush!
Wait, who's got the fanfare going? Hold on. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another week of Mischief Mayhem Movie. I am your new and better host, Vex Electronica.
Oh.
And here today, I have my okay co-hosts. They're white trash. But I also have Shieldwall here today. How are you, Shieldwall?
Hey, I'm doing great. How's everybody doing? Hey, thanks for having me on. This is one of the movies I kind of really like. It's a very interesting movie. But yeah, thanks for having me on. It's great to be on with you guys.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Okay, I apologize for the white trash comment. It's just I'm trying to like drudge up hate between you two because, you know, the Tennessee versus Kentucky thing. How are you today, Gord?
I'm great. You won't get that out of me because I want to live in Tennessee, and only Kentucky fans like Tennessee, and I actually hate Kentucky fans. So. But I am properly white and trashy today, and excited to talk this movie, which has really grown on me over the years. I quite enjoy Bone Tomahawk. I think this movie, it's gone from being underseen to relatively appreciated to, I think, just underrated. I actually think this is a pretty great movie.
I am in definite agreement with you. How about how you doing there, Beetlejuice Whitey?
Hello there. How you doing? Sorry, I was sick last week, so but I'm back.
How are you feeling? How are your bowels doing?
Got better. Yeah.
Is Whitey turning into Bumblebee?
Absolutely. So.
To Kansas City faggots.
Hold on, we gotta watch our language because YouTube
is
is being nutty. So we got just off air. We can say that. All right. So yes,
Daddy
we are
chill.
doing. Daddy chill.
There we
Daddy chill. All right. So yes, we are reviewing Bone Tomahawk this evening. So what just quick I know Gord, you gave your thoughts, but Shieldwall, what are some what do you think about this movie? Just brief opening thoughts.
I think that so when it first starts, you really don't have an idea what it's about. I mean, if you watch the trailers and stuff, maybe you did, but they really don't give anything away in the trailer, which I like. You know, it's a Western. It's set in the late 1800s. and there's going to be like saloons and things like that in it. So you're not really sure what's happening, but it is called Bone Tomahawk. So you probably think there's going to be like natives involved or something. And a lot of times they market it as a horror flick, which it kind of sort of is, but I like it. It's a slow burn though. It's a 2 hour and 12-minute movie or something like that, depending on the version you get. And most of it is not a lot of action or fighting. I would say probably a good 75% of it is just people talking and walking around and stuff. But it's engaging enough, and the acting is good enough, and the characters are interesting to me anyway. So, but I knew that it was going to be, like a Western kind of thing, and I wanted to see one because Westerns are kind of rare these days.
Yes.
So that's why I went and saw it back when it first came out. And then obviously when you guys said you were going to do it, I was like, oh, I'd love to be on that show. So
Nice.
yeah.
Whitey, what are your opening thoughts on this film?
Well, I was really weirded out by it. Like at first, I was just hearing about it. I was like, but it's got Kurt in it, and I don't know, just not a lot of actors that I really followed other than that. And I was, and the director, and I was confused because I thought I was watching a Tarantino movie at first, and later on I became pretty impressed and depressed and happy all over again. So I was really, really surprised. It didn't flow the way I expected at all. And it's, man, every bit of it just seems unique in a good way.
It has a lot of good themes in it too.
Yeah.
And genuinely, some of the dumbest criticisms like criticisms I've read against this movie are some of the stupidest I've ever read.
Like
okay, so the movie makes a pretty clear distinction between the primary antagonists of the film and actual Americans. And there are a lot of critics of the movie who got really upset by the depiction of the troglodytes because they still would think that, well, that's just reinforcing old, Western stereotype Americans and stuff, that they're cannibals and that they grape their women just for breeding purposes and whatnot. And I'm like, it very clearly says otherwise.
Yeah, they go out of their way to actually have a Native American in the film say that, hey, these are not our people.
And if anything, if anything, you could argue what Zahler decided to do, because initially he wanted to make Wraiths of the Broken Land. Great book, by the way, should read it. But he realized it would be too expensive, and so he wrote this script, instead. And I think what he did was he took a lot of those fears and he was like, well, if all of this was true, this is more what it would look like. This would be, because all of these old fears about Native Americans obviously were exaggerated in a lot of ways. So he kind of, I think, meshed a lot of that together into this type of entity that was terrifying and monstrous.
You know what else this movie reminded me of, as far as like I don't know what you call them, what do they call them, the voiceless ones or something? Basically the bad guys in the movie. They remind me of the 13th Warrior, of the people they're almost the same. They're like these, cannibalistic,
or
guys.
like that or something,
people.
or like,
and it's all, and the story's kind of the same. You have a group of heroes that have to go hunt them down or defend the town, and then
you can even argue that the monsters share a lot in common with the monsters from The Descent. That
that's a good point. Yeah,
they're human but inhuman, and it's like they're not really realistic. But they're not supposed to be. It's like you're facing off against something that skirts the line of reality in a way that's highly effective.
I never did think about it, but the 13th Warrior is a very good comparison there.
Right. I thought about it a lot when I first saw him. I was like, this is kind of, like the 13th Warrior kind of esque, and which goes back to nobody had a problem with those guys being cannibals or whatever.
See what you did there, Nadia.
So
Okay, so real quick, so we open up the film. Yeah, this is a bit of a slow burn, but I think, like you guys said, it works very well for what they're trying to do, and you get a lot of like good, healthy male bonding. Like every one of our four main protagonists kind of has a role. So we're introduced to Buddy, which is Sid Haig, and then this is David Arquette over here as Purvis. And they've encountered, I think, some other travelers, and essentially they've killed and robbed them. And they're moving through the bush, and they're just like, "Oh, like what's going on here? Like, there's a bear skull out here. Like, are we somewhere dangerous?"
Yeah, they get they're alarmed because they start hearing horses in the like out in the
Right. They were
just like
robbing
out the other direction. So they're like, "Oh crap! You know, if we get caught." So they start kind of heading in the other direction, and
Right.
leads
They,
them into
yeah,
this-
they killed those people on the ground because they were sleeping. They slit their throats, and then they were
Mhm.
going to steal all their stuff. Which apparently, the way they're talking is they do this all the time.
Yeah.
And then but one of the guys didn't die all the way, so he shoots at him, or he gets a shot off, but he misses the dying guy, and they finish him off. And he's like, "Hey, that's why you got to always cut the neck deeper, because there's 13 veins in the neck or something." He's like, "Well, how do you know?" And he's like, "Oh, I knew this guy who knew a doctor or something, and he told me about it." Anyway, but now they hear horses coming, and they're like, "Well, we got about 15 minutes. We need to get out of here." So they go into the hills, and when they go in the hills, they see these bear skulls, and then they see this thing.
Mhm.
But the reason they're going in here is to get away from whoever's about
Coming
ready to
after
find out, right, that they killed a bunch of people.
Mhm. So they find this burial ground, and this ends up being kind of the big thing that kickstarts the rest of the film, because they actually end up desecrating this while trying to get away. So this is why the troglodytes come to the town later on, and things unfold the way they do. So this is a really cool just shot of the whole. There's a lot. I noticed this film avoids doing centered shots quite a bit,
Mhm.
which I didn't notice the first, because you guys, the MMM guys told me about this film last year, so I only watched it for the first time last year. But on rewatch, I just noticed that Craig Zahler,
That's Craig Zahler.
Zahler. Yeah, he likes to frame everything off to the right side of the screen a lot more, which I thought was very interesting, because it paints this very nice illusion of this is all an isolated story. These are isolated towns on the frontier where things are already very harsh and they have so much working against them. It's just them and nature and whatever else that might bring.
That could be good at YouTube thumbnails.
The movie never really states like what area they're in. Like, are they in Arizona territory or whatever?
Yeah, Bright Hope. I don't, as far as I know, is not a real town.
I mean, it obviously looks like it was shot in California to me, but
yeah, it was shot in
yeah.
California.
It was.
Says, I know in the storyline on IMDb it says around the border of Texas and New Mexico, but it's unspecific.
That could kind of look like that in certain places.
Far away from Strawberry.
Yeah. You know, speaking of which, the whole time we saw that Indian burial ground or whatever, there's a place you can go to in Red Dead and find it in the forest that's kind of like that.
Yep.
Yeah. And yeah, so I haven't played that game a lot. That this brought up a lot of stuff with that. But look at the sets. Very well done. Everything looks period. The clothes, the furniture, all that. And
By the way, Vex, True Detective cast member right here. I didn't know if you noticed that.
I did notice that. Yep.
Yeah.
and I think they were able to pull all of this off on a relatively small budget.
I think it was 1.8 million. Yeah.
Yeah, but have it look authentic and everything. So you can do a good movie for under 200 million, Disney.
A period piece, nonetheless, under 200 million, with a pretty big, there's a pretty notable cast in this film on top of that, which is impressive.
Right. Yeah, every single one of the main male characters I knew who they were.
Exactly.
And to go back just a tad, the buddy actor was really good too.
Yeah.
Yes. Sid Haig.
Sid Haig, yeah. And I kind of liked your comparison to Tarantino. You said kind of thought you were getting into that. And I think that's part of the reason is because there are some casting choices that, some of them are fairly mainstream, Patrick Wilson, Kurt Russell, but then there's a little bit more fringe ones like Sid Haig, David Arquette, which is very much like Tarantino. So yeah, it's like, I kind of do think he took some ideas from some of the ways in which Tarantino likes to operate, and in my opinion, created a better film than at least one of Tarantino's Westerns.
Oh,
True.
agreed.
Do you think that Tarantino could have directed this and it would have been good?
I think he's probably one, okay, he definitely, I would trust a movie of Zahler's or a script of Zahler's in his hands more than Ridley Scott, who is in charge of Wraiths of a Broken Land. Hate that. But my concern would be is that Tarantino's violence tends to center around the catharsis, whereas Zahler, his violence is meant to be ugly. It is never meant to be glorified. I mean, his movies the 3 movies he's directed are all extremely violent. I mean, shoot, this movie opens with a guy getting his throat cut, but it is meant to look grimy and ugly and disturbing. It's not meant to be cathartic. It's meant to be like, oh gosh, that was awful. You're almost
This is a harsh reality kind of deal, as opposed to
and I kind of feel like Tarantino, my fear with him directing it would be that he would use it for the wrong reason. So I would prefer even he not touch his Zahler script.
Well, think about a scene.
Punchy enough.
Think about a scene where somebody in a Tarantino movie gets their eye taken out, and then that becomes the whole focus. Whereas in this movie, somebody gets their hand took off, and if you blinked, you kind of wouldn't have even really noticed for a second, and then you see it in the background just sitting on the ground.
Agreed. Yep.
Yeah, violence in movies is very sudden, and it feels very real that way. That's part of the reason it's so shocking and disturbing, is because it occurs in manners that you don't expect.
If I may just interject real quick. So here we get the introduction to one of our main 4 cast members. So this is Arthur O'Dwyer, and he recently has broken his tibia. You can see his foot is up on the footrest, and that is his young wife, Samantha, as well. So again, it's just a lot of people might think that a lot of these scenes are just kind of long drawn out, but Craig's really intentional with establishing this is who these characters are, this is how they are, and this is kind of what they hold dear to them. So I actually think he does a great job of building up that romance between Arthur and Samantha that kind of gives Arthur's character purpose throughout the rest of the film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I think his character work is a lot better than you might first realize when you first look, because he does a lot of show don't tell in his movies. This and Dragged Across Concrete, most notably, I think. A lot of the time you're not getting what motivates each character. Maybe a little bit with Matthew Fox, which I think Fox is the best character in this movie. I think this is an outstanding performance by Matthew Fox, but most of the time Zahler likes to just kind of show you what's motivating these characters rather than just tell you outright. And I think the more I've watched this, the more I've picked up a lot of those details, and I really appreciate his style a lot.
So here we finally get the introduction to our second main character. So this is Bruder. He's kind of a wealthy, what's the word? Not a crusader, but a traveler, right? He's a sharpshooter. He's got a really good aim. He's a little cheeky as well, which we hear periodically throughout the film. So here he's like, I want to buy a song. And this guy is sleeping because he's tired. And he's pointing out, your song says it's 3 cents for 1 song, but 10 cents for 3. Why is it more expensive kind of deal, right? I get tired.
Pick up on that. And then, he gives him the dime and he turns over. He's like, okay, starter fee's a drink. And he's like,
right. So then we get introduced to Kurt Russell's character. So he is the sheriff of Bright Hope. Sheriff Hunt. There we go. Sheriff Hunt was his name. And he's chilling. He's at the sheriff's office and he's making some corn chowder. And in comes his deputy Chicory, which is Richard Jenkins, and he rounds out the lead of our cast. So I like the dynamic between these two because it's very much Kurt Russell is a man of reasonable action, and we see that periodically throughout the film whenever the characters are introduced to any sort of hurdle. And Chicory's just kind of like that guy who's just like, I've lived my life. I have my things that I can appreciate, but there's things that I still I'm still willing to do a lot more things. So I find more often than not, like he's just there to kind of offer, here's the brighter side of things, and here's why we should appreciate life. I don't know if you guys got that as
Chicory's
well.
character is interesting because he's the backup deputy,
Mhm.
which means that it's really not an official, you know what I mean? It's not an official position, but Kurt Russell's character is giving it to him to give him something to do because his wife has died.
Yeah.
And he only sleeps like 4 hours a night, and he like wanders around in the dark doing stuff. And in a lot of ways, he's portrayed as bumbling
Yeah.
and forgetful. But as the movie goes on, you learn more about his past and see how he interacts with like the other townspeople. And because I'm like, you don't get to be this age, at least back then, and just be, well, maybe you did, completely idiotic. But he's got more under the hood. How about that about him? Than and also he's kind of very brave for somebody in that situation. You know what I mean? And some of the things that he does. But you find out later that he was in the war. I'm assuming the Civil War. Yeah.
Sorry, let me just. There's some side boob there that.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. He comes. It gets close. I don't think it ever quite gets to full boob, but it's close.
No, it doesn't. And then he covers it up with his hands, so it's
Yeah.
all good.
But no, you're that actually.
I'm sure he was happy to oblige.
And she showed me a
No, there was
movies, and I like them too.
You better
Yeah, I think,
explain a Chicory than I could. Sorry, go ahead, Gord.
Oh no,
Yeah,
that's fine.
So I found him one of the more interesting characters because he develops a little more, whereas the other ones, what you see is kind of almost what you get. And I really liked Arthur's character because he starts out at a massive disadvantage with an injured leg, and he carries that through the entire course of the movie. So it makes all the things that he did more, I guess, heroic and more epic, I guess.
Why
determined.
is it showing it like that? What the hell? Hold on. Oh my god, it's playing the movie. Whoops.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But I was gonna say part of what I think
Get in there.
Part of what I think
Sorry.
Chicory he serves in a lot of ways as a contrast to Bruder.
Right.
Because both of them, once you kind of realize that Chicory's, he's been in the war and he was, I believe, a doctor, so he had to have seen some truly terrible things.
I think he was an orderly or something, right?
Something along those lines. He saw a lot of. He had to have seen a lot of that.
He's probably cut off a limb or two.
And also,
Definitely.
I feel like he is the kind of person that his wife really was. He needed his wife in order to be successful. Like she was probably kept him straight on things. Hey, remember this? Blow in the soup before you drink it so you don't burn your lips and those kinds of things. And now that she's gone, it doesn't really. I mean, like he visits her grave and it says 1891. I don't know what year it is in this. So. But he goes and visits her almost every day and leaves flowers. But the sheriff has kind of taken over that role of having to remind him to do stuff. And
Task and like he's very much a follower, and Task keeps him grounded. I mean, he's a
people pleaser, and he likes to talk and ask questions.
But he's also he's highly loyal. But like I said, he's very much a contrast to Bruder. They're like, because Bruder's also seen a lot of really terrible things. And they're almost complete opposites in terms of personality. His name is even very intentional, Bruder. It's like even though he wears this, white suit and he looks very gentlemanly, he is quite brooding. When it comes to doing the darker things. But I think their dynamic is one of my favorites in the movie. I also think they're probably the two best performers overall.
Agreed. I agree with you.
Their character was my favorite.
So there was that brief love-making scene between Arthur and his wife. Again, just more establishing the romance and the bond between those two for things that happen later. And we go back to the saloon, and Bruder is here, and here we have Purvis. And they went and got the sheriff because they're like, who is this weird guy who's come into Bright Hope? Something's not right, right? And he says that, oh, my name is Buddy, and everyone's just kind of suspicious of him, right? So, oh God, what does Bruder say to him before shooting him in the leg?
Well, he lets it known, because I think the illusion the movie's making is that Chicory caught him digging that hole, and they were trying to figure out what's he doing.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
So the questioning is meant to kind of extract that information, and then he figures it out, and that's how they.
When the sheriff walks in, he's like, "Hey, who are you?" And he's like, "Hey, I'm just having a." He's like, "What are you doing in town?" He's like, "Oh, I'm just having a drink. I'm not causing any trouble." He's like, "Who said anything about trouble?" And he's like, "Well, I'm not a criminal." And he said, "Wait, who said anything about crime? Why are you talking about crime all of a sudden?" And then he's like, "In our town, when you talk to somebody, you look at them straight in the eye," because he wasn't like avoiding him. He's acting shifty. So then he's like, "Well, you want to talk about the bag that we saw you bury?" And tries to make a break for it. He shoots him in the leg.
Yeah.
So
and then they're just like, put some coffee in him, he'll be fine.
Yeah.
Go and get Mrs. O'Dwyer.
Oh, they wanted to go get the doctor, but the doctor's a drunk. So they were like, "Well, give him coffee if you need to." But it turns out the doctor's too drunk, so they get Mrs. O'Dwyer, who apparently has a lot of medical skill and does help.
If I'm not mistaken, she's the doctor's daughter.
Or something, right?
I don't know if they say it explicitly in the movie, but I read it in a plot synopsis. So
okay, that makes
would
sense.
explain a lot
Somehow
of
she knows the doctor, and that's why she can do all these things. Also, of note, Arthur he's like a cattle driver dude, right? And after all these years, he finally got foreman, which is a big pay raise and everything. But he fell off the roof trying to fix the roof during a storm, and she told him not to go up there, but he did anyway, and he fell and broke his leg. So she's constantly like, "I told you not to go up there, but you did." And he's like, "Well, I didn't have this is what I do," kind of thing, like I'm a dude. And so she's angry at him for that. And
So,
he knows that he wasn't smart doing that.
Oh yeah, and he's putting up this whole fuss too, like over his leg being elevated, and when they're having sex, it's like, no, I need to do this properly. I need to be on top of you and all that. So he's very stubborn, which is again a personality trait that comes into play later. So Bruder,
I also kind of think the scene where they're intimate is in part kind of there to put in your head what might be happening when she's kidnapped. At least, at the very least, putting in your head the fear he obviously feels.
Oh, 100%, 100%.
I feel like that scene was to really show that their affection for each other.
Yeah, I mean, it accomplishes, I think, all of those things.
Yeah, but it was to really cement that, this is why he's going to go after everything even with a broken leg, why he never stops, those kinds of things. There's also a letter that he wrote her when he was up in Wyoming on the trail that she says is poetic, but he reads it and it's just a letter.
Yeah, he's like, "What are you talking about?" Like, yeah.
But
I just wrote down some feelings.
Right. But so she really likes that letter. So there is it just more ways to show that they really care for each other.
Real quick, Hostman's Lounge for $1.99. Thank you. When Cannoli's away, Vex's autism comes out to play. I mean, we've known this for a long time. I just have a different, better functioning brand. But here is a clip that I think best suits you, Hostman, for your super chat. So Bruder comes and fetches Mrs. O'Dwyer, right? And there's a little bit of conversation that happens here that's a little bit like, because even Arthur hears from the other room, like, "Oh, who is it?" and whatnot, and the look on her face, and we get a reveal later on that he had actually not courted, but he had what's the
Had
word?
Designs on her is the way he puts it.
Yeah, there we go.
Probably
So
did try to. He tried to
hollering
court
at
her
her
in some way, it seems.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was trying to holler. That's what was going on, and she didn't have any of it.
She was like, "Nah, fam."
Yeah, I want Patrick Wilson, not you, bitch. Oh, Broke the swearing already. Sorry. Okay.
Wait, we're not supposed to swear?
Well, we're trying not to swear because YouTube seems to be doing some weird demonetization things. And
Okay.
swearing's the only thing that we can think of that it would still be having issues over. So yeah. As they go and fetch Mrs. O'Dwyer, so here we have one of the deputies, Deputy Nick or Sheriff Nick. I don't know what the
He's the deputy, and he's the actual paid deputy. That and I don't know if this guy gets paid, the other guy, but
probably not. Probably not.
But he's just hanging right. He's just hanging around and stuff.
Yeah.
And then so she comes in to work on the guy that got shot in the leg. Meanwhile, the sheriff is going through that guy's stuff. Purvis, I think is his name. The guy that was burying things by the tree, and he finds all kinds of stuff in there that obviously doesn't belong to him. So he knows that he's been thieving.
Oh, I think he got muted.
No, did you hear me? Hello?
You were muted there for a sec.
Oh, okay. Sorry. But anyway, they find out that Purvis has actually been stealing and is most likely guilty of some crimes and stuff. But she came in to work on his leg.
Oh my God! Hold on.
Wait, what's going on?
I don't know what's going on. Hold on. Okay. Sorry, my browser just completely fucking crashed. I don't know what happened.
Oh, that's probably why I cut out. I was like, I don't know what's going on.
It what crashed?
My browser.
Completely flipping crashed.
Completely flipping. There we go.
Okay, hold on. Let me reshare. Sorry about that. Continue conversing, please. Go on.
Yes,
go
yes.
on.
So
my computer's having issues today. I don't know what was going on with it earlier too. It was struggling to load clips while I was editing.
Wow.
What do you got running in the background on that thing?
I have nothing running in the background. That's the weird part.
Okay, because sometimes your computer will run like apps and stuff you don't even know about.
Yep. No, it's I'm always like closing all of them because they just boot up automatically on starting, and nothing weird. I literally don't use this for anything other than streaming and editing. So
okay. Also, so in her bag she has a what's it, like tincture of opium or something, which was a known painkiller back then.
All purpose.
Yeah, I want to say by this point in the history, if this is post 1891, maybe even ether is around already. But in any case, at this point in the West, they did have things that could reduce pain and stuff like that, like cocaine gum, and But if this is anything like Red Dead Redemption, just have him smoke a cigarette. He'll be fine.
Three more cigars in there.
While Mrs. O'Dwyer gets to the prison and she starts operating on him, and she's just like, please go let my husband know that I'll probably be here late, that he doesn't need to stay up. And in the meantime, there's like a weird calling. Like we hear the wolves howling in the distance, and this is a stable boy in town. So he's looking around and he's wondering, like, what is this weird sound? What's going on? Are the horses okay? Kind of deal. And there he hears
stable person. Actually.
Stable person, yeah. Sorry,
politically correct. Calling him boy. I mean, leave that to me.
Yeah, it's just it doesn't show it. You just get the sound effect, and he's dead. Which I like that this movie does that a lot. Like there's one or two instances where they do get a little gorier for you, but they leave it as a surprise, which I appreciate, because otherwise, like Tarantino does this as well, where it's just like once there's one gory scene, every scene where there's some blood spatter or anything has to be gory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's more, with some directors, it's more about like, let's one up the next scene, whereas a lot of what granted, Zahler ultimately one-ups every bit of violence late in the film, but I don't think it's about one-upsmanship. It's, I think when violence needs to be sudden and unexpected, like he's kind of giving you character perspective. I mean, this stable boy wasn't expecting what happened to him, and then the troglodytes snuck up on him. One of them cut his throat, the other one put an arrow through him. It's like it was boom, quick, he's gone.
So Arthur is still like, he wakes up in the middle of night and his wife still isn't home, and that's just kind of alluding to something that's about to be revealed. And now it's the next morning and Sheriff Hunt is at home with his wife, and she actually has I think I said it was pneumonia earlier, and she seems to be doing a lot better. So she's up and about, and she's making him his favorite food and whatnot. And then one of the townspeople comes by, and he's like, "Some stuff went down, bro, and we kind of need you to look at it, you know."
And here's the thing about that character development is the fact that she was sick didn't need to be mentioned whatsoever for this scene to work.
Yeah, agreed.
Right. So it just, I guess it like humanizes the sheriff a little more.
Yeah, it's all in his body language that he's like really concerned about her and he loves her deeply and all that. So, again, these are all like little things that may seem pointless in the beginning, but by the end of the film, they all come full circle really nicely. So the sheriff, I think that's Chicory in the middle, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. And the bartender that came to get him, they all go to the stable to check out what's going on. And I really liked the scene because they one by one behind each other.
Yeah.
They come up, but they're all holding guns. It's just like, go to the other side.
Yeah.
You know, this like center kind of like master shot where it's just like it's so just honest. You know, it's just three men rolling up on a bar and being like, oh,
Right.
what the shit are we about to walk into, you know?
So they enter in and they see that again, here, it's darker, so you don't get the full gore. It's still trying to keep that mystery. And the stable hand is just on the ground. He's been dead for some time, and they're just like, okay, let's
And gutted.
yeah.
He's gutted and his eyes are put out.
Yeah, he's in a bad way if you still frame that shot, but it's you know, like you said, like they're not putting it into full view, like they're not you know, trying to glorify the violence you're seeing at this point.
Yeah,
because
we still don't even know what the cause of the violence is, right? So it's really trying to build that up, which I like. So they get to the sheriff's station and they see that Purvis, or Buddy, as he introduced himself, is gone, and Mrs. O'Dwyer is also gone. Same with Sheriff Nick; he's also missing. And just like, oh gosh, what are we going to do now? And they find this peculiar arrowhead has been lodged into one of the poles. And if I remember, sorry, I watched this movie a couple days ago, so you'll have to refresh my memory. But I think they needed to call on like the Indian in town to figure out like what
They
tribe.
called him the professor, right?
Yeah.
But he's an Indian, and they were like, so they can figure out what tribe it is. What's interesting about that arrow is that arrowhead is a bird skull.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a crow skull or something, or some kind of bird.
It's a lot of repurposing parts of animals.
Right. All of their weapons of the
troglodytes.
Yeah, of the troglodytes are like bone.
Like
made
a
from
bone tomahawk.
Right.
Oh, I wonder where they got the name.
And that looked like it was a jaw off of like a horse or something.
Yeah.
Ass. So Sheriff Hunt goes to visit Arthur because, of course, his wife is missing now, and he's like, "Yo, bro, like I need to like fill you in on some things. Your wife was taken during the night," and Arthur's just like, oh, God, "Like, why do I have this stupid broken leg of all of a sudden?" And he's explaining like it looked like it might have been natives. We're going to have a meeting shortly at the town hall to figure out what to do. And Arthur's immediately just like, I'll pack and I'll meet you there. Like, there's no question about it. Hunt doesn't even try to push back on it because of his very obviously broken leg. So they all go and meet here, right? Bruder shows up as well. So does Chicory. We have the bartender there. And they're all trying to figure out, I think they're waiting on is that the Indian? That's not the Indian.
No, that's the guy. That's the guy who's worried about his horses.
He owns the stable.
Oh, there's the Indian. There we go.
Yeah, there's a dude from Longmire.
He's also in Fargo season 2.
Nice. All right. So he's just kind of explaining, like, listen, these aren't my kind of Indians. Like, these are some really like evil people. Like, we don't associate with them whatsoever. We don't even really call them natives, right? And they're just
call them a bunch of inbred abominations that grape and eat their own mothers.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so he's just like, okay, where are they? And he's like, they're off to the mountains, some ways away. It was like a few days trek, right? Okay, can you show us on an old survey map, right? So they start to plan out like, okay, where are these people? What are we going to do? And
I
Sheriff
like
says,
that he, if you don't mind me interjecting,
no, go ahead, go ahead.
I like the dialogue from him where he's, first they're like, could you lead us up there? He's like, no. They're like, what are you're scared of your own kind or whatever. And but he's saying, I don't want to get killed. And he's like, you all don't stand a chance against them. And there's no music trying to, enhance like the emotion here. It's just like he's just flat telling them, it's like, you all don't stand a chance against these people.
Right.
You don't really get what you're up against here.
Yeah, they're like, why? Yeah, you don't want to, go against your own people. He's like, well, they're not my own people, and I don't want to die because that's what's going to happen. Also, they were like, well, if they're cannibals, why didn't they eat the stable guy? And they were like, oh, they don't eat black people, which
they think the meat is tainted or something like that. Yeah.
Which is
troglodytes are racist.
I guess I don't know why they felt they needed to add that, but they did. But
I think that was just like a piece of dialogue, because there is a moment later on where they're noting something about bigotry. I can't remember what the line is, but I think it was just more or less to show that like these people in the town don't see that same distinction. That's still parts of, the West we're seeing at the time, right? Because we are in a moment where it's kind of a unifying of the Americas. So
also, I didn't realize this till the third viewing that, okay, so we got like Mayor Cuckold here, whose wife does all the talking. It took me 3 viewings to realize that the mayor's wife is Sean Young. I was like, oh my gosh.
Oh.
Wait, what?
Sean Young. That's Sean Young.
No.
Yeah. That is Sean Young.
Like wow. Okay.
I didn't think it looked like her either. And then I was like, she looks familiar.
I got Bruder's face learning
and
this.
And
then
I looked at the casting and I was like, oh my gosh, that's Sean Young. Holy crap.
Dang. So they all formulate a plan, and Hunt is like, okay, I'll go in the mountains. Chicory, you stay behind in case something goes down. Like, I need someone who can, watch over the town just in case, right? And Bruder's like, listen, I went and got your wife. Like, I owe it to go and get her back. And Arthur's just like, I'm coming with no question. Like, she's my wife. I can't just sit here with my busted leg and do nothing at all, right? And
Bruder makes mention of the fact that he says, also, I've killed more Indians here. And the professor's like, that's a pretty ugly boast. And he's like, it's not a boast. It is simply a fact.
Because, even when he says it, it's not like he is trying to be, a chud or anything like that. He's just matter-of-factly, like, I can be useful for you. Which, again, all of this little dialogue comes into play later really nicely.
And one thing I do really appreciate about the script is, okay, so the more we learn about Matthew Fox's character, it's like, look, you could easily portray him as just utterly loathsome because he has qualities that many people would see that way. The movie never judges him. The movie is letting you do that. It's like, you can think of him or these characters however you want. It's like, it's not directing you to feel a certain way about anybody.
I think the other thing that the movie kind of alludes to a little bit, and why the sheriff and other people are more accepting of him, is because there are certain times when you need people like that. And so maybe they don't fit into society normally any other way than doing stuff like this.
Well, the West was definitely that kind of place for a lot of people after the war.
And also, as the plot moves on, you learn more about all of the characters, that because there's time to develop them, because the movie's kind of so long, they have a chance to really develop these characters, and you see an aspect of his character that enlightens you more onto why he is the way he is.
Also, I think fascinating about Bruder is, given his demeanor and his dress and how educated he is, in this particular society, he'd probably be the most law-abiding citizen imaginable, and yet he's probably the most, he's the most learned killer amongst them at the same time.
So here, again, so we see Arthur packing, and here is Hunt, and his wife is pretty worried given the situation. And they don't say, I love you. They don't say any like long-winded goodbye or anything. All she says is, just please come back. That's it. Which I thought
this is a sad goodbye. I mean, like when you watch this movie, even the first time, you kind of get the sense, all right, this probably isn't going to end well. It's because
Oh
it's
yeah,
so
it's in the body language. You can see the way
yeah.
that yeah.
She is.
Well, they
She
could
kind
have.
of understands what you're. It's like my husband's about to go into a really dangerous place. She might not know exactly how bad. None of them do, but it's
Mhm.
like, this is bad.
I think she's probably sent him off more than enough times, seeing him go off and have to go probably capture an outlaw or whatever stuff like that. Things happen, and back then 30-mile ride might make you have to stay out overnight.
Mhm.
But they didn't make a big deal about it to the point where it was like, Bobby, you've been on the service a long time, and I just want you to come back this time. Like they didn't make it feel like too much foreshadowing, I guess.
Agreed.
I kind of
They give you just enough to show you that she realizes that this is a bit different, but nothing.
But they're still
dramatic.
real humans. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Arthur's packing, Hunt is saying goodbye. Chicory goes and visits his wife's grave, Nadine's grave, for the last time because again, they're kind of they are preparing for the worst, it seems, right? But this oh gosh, I think I missed this when I was rewatching. I don't remember this scene. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
1891. Okay.
Yeah, he's visiting the grave of his wife. Yeah.
Mhm.
Which we don't know exactly when she died. We just know that this movie, at the very least, is that year, probably a little bit after, but
Yeah, maybe the following year, but definitely before the turn of the century. Yeah.
It's it's before the turn of the century, but it could be all the way probably up to like 1895, 96, maybe even 99,
Mhm.
Depending on what part of the country you're in. But after
Gotcha.
a certain point, they'd start having like, telephones and electric lights and whatever.
Mhm. So Arthur rides up and he notices that Bruder has his wife's kit because like they're taking it in case one of them might need medical help, and Arthur's also on the way, and Hunt's not trying to stop him at all, but he's trying to be proactive. Like, if we do rescue your wife and you're already here, like, can your horse carry another person? Are you going to be okay? Are you sure like that leg isn't going to be causing an issue? But at the same time, he seems to be very empathetic with the plight of, I understand what it's like to have that bond and to miss your spouse, because we've gotten the same development between Sheriff Hunt and Mrs. Hunt, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he understands like this is the man's duty. It's like, I'm not going to stop you. You need to save your wife. I would do the same, but we need to be practical. We need to keep our heads on straight. He's like he's trying to be level-headed to know, because he knows that you're in an emotional state, buddy. So we can't have you doing anything stupid while we're making this trip, because you being hurt is already a hindrance. So let's not make it worse.
So they ride out and they've already stopped for a little bit of water. And I think Arthur's leg is already starting to act up a little bit because it's just banging on the side of a horse and whatnot. And they're just preparing like, oh, where's the next water? There's a lot of instances where it's just kind of them in the outback. Again, it's not even trying to be overly like cinematic with all of this. It's just like, this is what life would have been like. This is what that journey would have been like for them. And then we get like little moments. So here we see that Bruder is setting up a trap along their camp border of little bells in case raiders or even more of those troglodytes come by. Chicory's just always curious about everything, which I quite enjoy. Like I noticed like all the other four try not to interact, but Chicory is kind of the glue that holds them together, so to speak. All of them get along fine with Chicory.
I like they have that funny little line where he's like, "Are any of you a somnambulist?" And he's like, "That's private." He's like, he's asking if you sleepwalk. He's like, "Oh no."
The thing about that trap, the chain trap, is it's not like some homemade thing. This is like something he bought.
Yeah,
it's metal with little bells, and it's like braided metal or whatever. So he went out of his way to get that thing, which tells you that he's an expert at kind of camping in dangerous territory.
I love because part of what he's taking issue with is the fact that Bruder is sort of taking lead, and he takes some umbrage with that. He doesn't like that because he's like, no, he's the sheriff's the lead and whatnot. But he points out, he's like, I'm the most intelligent amongst us and whatnot. I'm just trying to
Oh,
keep
that's a very
alive."
good line. He's like, I'm
And
the most intelligent.
he's like, "What makes you think that?" He goes, "Well, he's married," and it's like, so is the sheriff, and you're a widow. It's like, what's that got to do with anything? It's like, because intelligent men don't get married.
Yeah, I love that line. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I'm like,
that's
for a
funny.
guy who is such, I mean, and Zahler's books often have a character like this who is a loner, who is kind of the scary individual who's along for the hero's journey. You see that in Rights of a Broken Land also, and but at the same time, it's like he's also got the funniest lines. I mean, he's such a good character. I love Matthew Fox's work in this. I think he's really well written.
There's definitely a dual point to that statement too.
Here's the other thing: is a lot of the stuff that he brings up, they're like, or does, they're like, oh, you shouldn't have done that, or you shouldn't have said this, or whatever. But it's one of those cases where most of the time he's not wrong.
Yeah. Time and time again,
love him or hate him, he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of like modern day stuff where people are like, you can't say that, but it's right.
Right, exactly. So they eat their dinner and whatnot, and they settle in for the night, and we have this nice little moment. Again, like it's just kind of like bringing you back to like happier times, slice of life kind of things. And Chicory's just talking about like, have you ever taken a bath and read a book? And and Hunt's just like, what the hell are you talking about? He's like, I've always wanted to read a book in the bath, but I always drop the book or I get the pages wet. And he's just like, well, why don't you just like put a shelf there and you can put your book on? He's like, oh, okay, I'll try that when I get back. It's just
like, just get a little music stand like a conductor. He's like, oh, that's a good idea.
Right. So they sleep all fine. Nothing kind of goes down that first night, and they ride out. I think this is supposed to be like a 3.
When they were setting up the chain trap, he's like, well, what if somebody walks up into it? And he's like, if you hear the chains, just shoot at the sound. And they're like, well, what if it's a person walking up? And he's like, a person walking up should announce himself. If they're not, they're bandit. Well, what if it's a wild animal, like a horse or something? And they're like, any animal that comes towards the camp is going to be a predator.
Yeah, he says the horses are hobbled, so any animal will be a predator.
And he shoots, and it was like a coyote or a wolf or something, because it's like whimpering after it got hit. Basically, again, he was right. Also, he has this spyglass from Germany, so they call it the German.
The German.
But it's from Hamburg. Because incidentally, they were really good at making optics back then. One of the places.
Well, Germans have always been known for their optics.
Right. No, that's true, because in World War I and World War II, they would always, if they could get them on the battlefield, they always try to get the German binoculars because they were better.
It's basically an HD telescope.
So Arthur is just kind of like off, kind of taking a moment because his leg is bugging him, and we kind of see him just like unravel his, take out his what's the word? Not spool.
It's splint.
Splint. Thank you. And we can see that his leg wound is getting real irritated here. He's struggling. He even takes the Lord's name in vain because he's a very religious man. He's like, I'm sorry, which I thought was very funny. Yeah, you can see here again. Even here, it's out of shot mostly, like all of the gore and whatnot, which I appreciate. So just
it's like the violence isn't about being gratuitous. It's like it'll show it when you have to see it.
Exactly, when it's justified.
And the way he acts this out, you can actually, if you've ever had an injury, you can feel the pain of just taking the boot off. And then now he's going to wrap it and put alcohol on it on a cut. And, that's going to be a lot of pain. He knew that's coming. But just imagine having to make this trip with a hurt leg. You're riding all day. You can't really do anything for it. But he did have the tincture of opium in his pocket.
Yeah. So he comes back over to the fellas, and they're just like, they kind of know, like, hey, like, what do you got there? It's just like, and he snaps completely. Arthur just loses it. He's just like, it's my opium. You have no right to be taking it from me. And they're just like, listen, like, we can't have you taking that and then riding on a horse. You're just going to fall off the horse, and that's going to cause even more issues. And he just kind of like, he stops for a minute.
he basically employs a similar method of interrogation with Arthur as he did with quote unquote Buddy at the beginning. He asks him a question about something else to get him talking, to lead him into the trap of, because he searched the bag, he knows about the opium, but he's like, how's the leg doing? And he knows his leg is in a much worse way than he's going to let on, so he's letting him say it. And basically that I'll more or less be all right. And he's like, because of the opium then. And it like, because I know like the first and second time I watched this, when he got upset with Bruder when he said, I know how to interrogate a man, Chicory pipes in saying he has a system. And I was like, I at first didn't realize they had actually showed that. I wasn't even thinking about it. Then I was like, oh no, they totally show it. They show it twice. That is his system, is he gets you, he kind of walks you into a trap basically to where you're going to react. And that's always what he's aiming to do, is he's getting you to tell you that he wants you to tell that little bit of information so he can then confront you with the truth. And if you react to it, he knows he has you.
I didn't even realize that. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
It's really good writing. I was like, oh, that's actually really cool.
So they're at their second night at the campsite now, and again, the border is put up with the bells, and they hear some twigs snapping, right? So they all draw, and they're looking. I think Arthur is like passed out at this point. And these two Mexican, okay, that's not being racist. They are Mexican, okay? These two Mexicans come up, right? And they're just like, introduce yourself. Like, who are you? Like, light a match so I can see you. Have your friend light a match so I can see him.
Can I tell you where I think Bruder made his choice?
Yeah.
When the other guy stepped out behind him, and we didn't see him before, I think the reason that Zahler filmed it that way, because I think that's our indication. This is why he's going to shoot them. Is this guy was hiding behind his buddy? You ain't hiding unless you've got some ill intentions. I think if they don't do that, he's probably not shooting him. Now, granted, it's a film trick because obviously he's got a different visual perspective. But so technically it probably wouldn't work. But I think that's the idea they're trying to give you, is that the guy's hiding behind the other. So that's why he's going to shoot them.
Interesting. Yeah. So yeah, because they're talking, right? And Hunt and Chicory are trying to just like be civil with them because these might just be people, walking around. And yeah, as you said, Bruder just shoots them. And they're like, dude, why did you shoot him? Like, what are you doing?
He shoots them when they hit his bell tripwire.
Yeah.
They walk into it, and because they told him to come forward, and when they hit it, he shoots them. Both. And now like, they were scouts for a raiding party.
Yeah. Which I would agree with him, because there's no reason two men are going to be walking around in the dark with no light, no horses otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, like, granted, like the movie only gives you one further indicator that he's probably right, but even that you could argue is iffy because it's just one. We never see another guy other than the third one later on. But I think
there's definitely more, because they still.
We know there's a third, and they do make a mention that they think there's probably other ones, but you never see them.
Right.
So, but I tend to think he's almost certainly right about that. I mean, the third one did come pretty boldly across and try to kill him. I mean, you could argue it's for revenge, but it's like,
so while this is all going down, like Bruder suggests, like, listen, we should not stay here for the night anymore because those gunshots are going to be heard. Whoever was with them is probably going to come. Arthur kind of wakes up at this point. And Chicory's just like, listen, eat your dinner. We'll pack up and get you ready when we're all done, right? So they go out, and Bruder uses the German to go scout another spot. And he's like, okay, I found like a cliffside. We've got one guarded side that should be good for the night, and it's far enough, right? So they settle in for the evening. Things all seem like they're going fine. And there we go. Then they hear, like, just middle of the night, suddenly there's some muffled shouting and everything. I can't remember. Oh, does he get stabbed? Bruder gets stabbed in the arm, right?
Stabbed. I think he gets stabbed in between the, like, I think it's in the pec, but yeah, it's right alongside his arm.
Yeah, so between the arm and his side. Like almost it went between his arm and his side, but he got a little bit of a cut there.
Gotcha. Yeah. So it turns out someone.
I take one thing back. It is almost certain that there's more than because like they get away with the horses. So yeah, it is a raiding party.
Yeah.
I'm a little confused. I was a little bit confused for a sec because I know later in the movie, Kurt Russell says, "I don't know how it would have gone with the Mexicans," and I thought what he meant was he wasn't sure he was right. It's like no, they got away with the horses, so no, he was absolutely right.
So, they take the horses. Again, we don't see the people. We just know that the horses are gone. And, Bruder's just like saucy. His horse wouldn't let someone else on. Like she's very tame and she knows who her owner is. And Arthur spots and he's just like, it looks like she put up a fight.
This was the bigotry line you were referring to earlier because he says he basically cut. We'll keep it clean. We won't say what he says, but he refers to a Mexican as something you're not supposed to call a Mexican.
Something oily.
Yeah, something.
Yeah, he says that his horse would never let one of the Mexicans ride it. And they're like,
said,
wait, so you trained your horse in bigotry to be a bigot?
And
he's like, no, it's just that she's smart and she's not going to let bad people ride her.
Yeah. So it turns out he was right. His horse did in fact not do that, and they had injured the horse trying to get away. And this is like the one of two instances where we see him actually quite emotional. And I actually appreciated that the scene was in the film because it's very common for people that own horses or ride horses. So he decided, you hear the horse whinnying in the background, and then you just kind of see him, single gunshot to the head to put her out of her misery. Yeah. So here now the fellas are just like, shit, like we don't have any horses. Oh God. They're like, okay, we got no horses anymore, but we still got to make a trek. We'll just walk during the night. We'll sleep during the day because that's safest. And Arthur's just like, listen, don't worry about me. I'll keep up with you guys. If I fall behind, I'll catch up. So he stays behind to kind of like get his stuff together and whatnot. And the fellows all start going. And I believe it's here as well that they state they're going to leave rocks to mark the path. In case.
That's a little bit later because they let him go ahead first, and they say, we'll grab your gear. You go ahead and start moving. But yeah, in general, the plan is that when they sleep during the day, he'll work to keep up. They're just kind of giving him a head start. They later do the rock thing after his leg gets hurt again.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And this is also where Chicory's telling a story about when I was in Mississippi with my wife. We saw a one-legged man win a race because he could, with the crutch, he could take like these big lumbering strides. And it's like, yeah, but that guy didn't have a leg. It's different when you have a wounded leg. With the pain and everything. But he's always trying to look at the bright side of things. Chicory is.
Exactly. Yeah. So we just get some shots of Arthur kind of walking through the desert. We see him kind of catching up or lulling behind with the fellas. And you can see he's really starting to struggle because at least before he had the horse, but now like he is really struggling to keep up pace. He's also the only one of them that has like a sweat going too, which I thought was a nice little detail. So his leg kind of just finally gives up, and he's just like, don't stop. Don't worry about me. Just keep going on. Like I'll catch up when I catch up. Right. I like look at the costumes, man. These all look so lived in as well as the other.
Right.
They do.
And as they walk,
this movie in a way reminds me of Stand By Me. Just the characters are adults instead of boys.
Oh,
kind of. There's a lot of things that sort of remind me of it.
Interesting. That's
also
nice
as they travel, they get dirtier and dirtier.
Yep.
Which it would make sense.
Again, which is another nice little detail that in a lot of period pieces these days you don't see. It's just everyone is clean cut all the time, even when they're bleeding, which is weird. So yeah, we just, again, more traveling. We see that he's struggling to get up the slopes and everything. The fellas are in the meantime, like they're calling back, just making sure that he's okay and whatnot. But it's just perseverance. That's all that this is trying to show. Like this is like, it's not like in a bad way, but like that stubbornness that we saw him display a couple times earlier is really coming through, but it's in a good way now. Right.
And they bring it up periodically, but they're like, hey, you need the rest. He's like, no, I can't rest because I'm always thinking about, like what they're doing to my wife or whatever.
Oh yeah. 100% after what he, heard the professor say. Right.
Right.
So he finally catches up with them, and these fellas have been sleeping for a few hours, kind of like in this clearing, or I feel like this is by like a bit of a bank or something. That's what it looks like.
It almost looked like a dry riverbed.
Yeah, there we go. Because I keep thinking there's water nearby. So Arthur just finally takes a moment to lie down, and finally the guys wake him up and just like, hey, it's twilight. We're gonna head out now. You catch up when you can.
I think, by the way, you're right about the river, because I think this is where he tells him that Bruder found a water source and refilled his canteen. I think that's what he's telling him here.
Okay. So I think here, because his leg is still bugging him, right? They're just like, listen, dude, like you gotta just stay here, please. Like it's you're just gonna be a hindrance. It's not gonna do you any good. You're not gonna be able to help your wife. Just stay here and relax. We'll have Chicory look at your leg, because he used to be a doctor when he was in the war, right?
Well, this is where Bruder kind of makes a little offhanded comment about
they were
trying to convince him to stay, and he's like,
good.
If we get to your wife first,
and then
I
Bruder
won't make it.
made this comment.
Thank you. And he punches him, and then he slips, and that's how he messes up his leg again. Yes.
Basically he unsets his own leg, which is like, it's pretty rough. It's like, that sounds horrible.
Mm-hmm. Here's what you said. Like, God knows what they're doing to her, and every second, right? He can't stop thinking about because now they've lost even more time without the horses, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Chicory's just like, listen, Bruder, just step back, move away from here. Let me deal with this kind of deal.
This right here is why stealing somebody's horse was a hanging offense.
Yeah.
Because if they're without the horses, they're absolutely screwed. Especially if you were out in the middle of nowhere. The horse was like, it'd be like not having a car now.
But a car made out of meat that you could eat.
Not even just being without a car, being without a car in the middle of nowhere.
Right, exactly.
It's always funny to me when people like are like critical of like Old Testament punishment and stuff like that. Like, you mean you're gonna execute someone for stealing? It's like, yeah, it's because it's a really big deal if you steal from somebody. It's kind of horrible. It's like we've kind of softened up on that stuff, but a movie like this kind of shows no, stealing was a really big deal. You could kill somebody stealing from them.
Right, exactly.
So Chicory really looks at the leg, and he's like, dude, I gotta like cut this leg off. Like, it's just gonna get more infected. It's just gonna get worse. Like, this is like, and he's just like, no, like I don't want to lose my leg. Like, it's my choice. You're not gonna cut it off.
My body, my choice.
Right, my body, my choice. Right. So finally, they just kind of agree, like, okay, we'll reset it, but you gotta stay here and chill, guy. Like, you can't come along with us. So Chicory gives him a little tablespoon or teaspoon of opium, and he also says here, like, I'll leave some in a flask for you. Just don't take more than a tablespoon a day, otherwise, ooh.
Part of what's, and this is another scene where what I like about the way they handle Matthew Fox's character, and what I was talking about earlier when I said the movie doesn't judge him, is the movie really kind of, since his horse died, has been humanizing him more and more. And, he makes this kind of snide comment about his wife, and, someone could take away from that, okay, yeah, we're supposed to hate him again. It's like, no, it's like he's probably feeling at least a touch resentful about this journey, because now he's experienced loss for its sake.
Yeah.
And he makes this kind of offhanded comment, and he gets punched for it. But even after all of that, he apologizes to all of them, including Bruder. Bruder's like, hey, think nothing of it.
That's a pattern where they all snap at each other, but then they always say, shortly after, hey, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that or get upset or whatever. Especially Chicory.
Like, these guys are basically, because he understands, these people aren't just helping me. It's like, I'm basically a hindrance to helping my own wife, which a lot of that is playing into his mentality. It's not just I need to save my wife, but he's almost in a way trying to prove his masculinity again. It's like he's trying to, do what a husband's supposed to do. That's part of the reason why someone like Bruder makes him feel insecure, and why a comment that shouldn't bother him that much does bother him.
So they reset his leg, and again, we don't see the gore. All we hear is the hammer hit the bone, and then the scene cuts, and Arthur is kind of passed out from the opium, so they leave him behind, right? And this is where Hunt says, we'll leave 4 stones to mark the path if you want to catch up, right? He doesn't say when you're going to catch up. Like it's alluded to, if you choose to, the path will be there, kind of deal.
Which, I love the idea of leaving 4 stones to mark the trail when they're now entering into a place where stones are far more ominous. So there's this contrast between the way the troglodytes use stones to kind of mark their territory, whereas they're using it to mark the path in and out. It's like, I like that.
Mm-hmm. So they hear the horns blowing, right? And they're just like, oh, this is like, I thought I heard this sound the night when, the stable boy got murdered and the kidnapping happened. And it's, I don't know how to describe this, but I suppose this is where the horror elements come in, because it's not like just a horn, like a normal horn blow or anything like that. It's like
a screeching sound.
Yeah.
It's funny because you played that clip for Hosty of the Velociraptor. It's similar to a moment in, I think, the 3rd Jurassic Park, where they make like what's supposed to be a raptor's vocal chamber, and they blow on it and it makes the animal sound. It's basically that. Hearing. It's creepy as all get out.
Well, it sounds a lot like the Mayan death whistle or whatever, if you've ever heard one of those. It's like a specially carved little stone whistle or bone whistle that sounds like a person screaming when you blow into it.
Hi, Cannoli.
Oh, hello. Sorry, whose channel is this?
Kick him out.
My God. Yeah, you can boot me. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I hope everybody's having a great evening. In fact, you're doing a splendid job as always.
Oh, thank you. I'm not remembering this movie as well as I would like to, because I'm just thinking about all the mold I need to clean.
Yeah, I was going to say, you have mold on the brain. I don't even know how you're alive.
Tomahawk.
Mold, yeah. There you go.
Mold Tomahawk. Yes. Hello, everyone. Yes, it's a fantastic movie.
Thankfully, we have the best panel for this movie, though, regardless.
Agreed.
So now they're just, oh God, so after they hear the horns, what happens?
Further up and further in.
That's all they're talking about.
Oh, no,
right?
no. So that is the moment when he's talking about, he asks them while they're walking, he's like, so how many Indians actually kill? And he's like, a lot or whatever. And he's like, how did you kill that many men? And he's like, well, not all of them were men. And he's like, what? Were they children, women and children? He's like, well, yeah. And
he says, how'd you kill that many Braves? And he says, how'd you kill that many brave men? Like, it's something that to where he plays on that a little bit. He goes, well, they weren't, all of them weren't. And he goes, what, Braves? He goes, they weren't all men. And he's like, oh, and he's like, he goes, an Indian's wife is still an Indian.
Yeah,
and she knows how to use a bow just like her children do.
Right. And so basically he's like, oh. And then
and he asks, and he goes, why do you hate him so much? And he says, well, you should ask my mother.
My mother and my sister. And he's like, I've never met him. And he's like, exactly.
That is correct.
So
it's
what he's saying is the Indians killed his family when he was 10 years old.
Yeah.
Yep.
Gotcha. So it's daytime now, and they're trying to, because those horns, they keep hearing them, right? So they're on the lookout. And now you can see that this whole this journey has kind of bonded them, because now for the first time, he gives, instead of threatening people about breaking the German and going to Hamburg, he's like, here, you could try. He's like, oh. And Chicory's not just like, oh, I see them. He's like, oh my God, I wish we had.
He's marveling. Like, what do you see?
To the rodeo with my wife.
Yeah. He's just like, new technology.
Right.
Chicory is by far my favorite character in this movie. I just love him.
He would be second for me after
Bruder.
Matthew Fox's. Like,
Matthew Fox is great. Yeah,
and
Bruder's great. But so
Chicory's just like, hey, can Sheriff use the German? He's like, yeah. So they'll get a shot at using this this fancy German tech, right? And it looks like they do spot something in the distance, and that's where they decide to head. And this kind of ushers in the final act of the film, which is quite long, actually, now that I look at the
yeah, but there's a lot that happens from this point on that's just insane.
Yeah, exactly.
So here they find horse tracks, and he says, hey, does one of the horses look smaller and it's missing a shoe? And he's like, yep, right here. And he said, well, that's the guy, all the horses that got stolen out of the town. One of them was like that. So that's how they know they're on
In
the
the
right
right
track.
place.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
And this is definitely where why it's categorized as a horror, why that element starts to play in as well. So they're trying to track this, and they come now. We're looking at that same area that Purvis and Buddy had been in the opening, and they see the skulls on the wall. And
I
they're
just
like,
love
"What?"
that this is right outside of this little pass here, because it's like, you know, and again, I love that this movie doesn't, you know, try to hold your hand through the elements. It's letting, you know, because any other film would start playing up the music and making it sound spooky and ominous, like, oh, he's entering in. It's like, no, the movie is using the imagery.
atmosphere
Like,
does
yes, he's
everything
entering
in-
into some shadows, so that's the best visual indicator is
Right.
he's walking into shadow. But you have these bones at the entrance, and you're like, okay, so this is where we're entering into the really bad territory.
So Bruder's like, you know, just like, we have a plan. You guys stay back, and I'll signal you with a rock if it's safe to come through, right?
Yeah, he said, if I'm not back in 30 seconds, then leave. But and he's like, well, what'll be the signal? He's like, I'll throw a rock out. So he goes in, he gets a rock. This is when they're talking about it. And he's like, I'll throw the rock. And so he gets his watch out.
Yeah,
Man,
this
jumping ahead by 10 again, it's like these scenes are long, but there is so much that actually happens in that long enough. Yeah.
Well, part of what I like about Zahler's films is that he doesn't shy, like he makes like, I think he very intentionally shows kind of the mundane aspects of taking on tasks like this. Like, if you watch Dragged Across Concrete, there's like 2 or 3 scenes where they're staking out this one location and like nothing happens really.
Right.
So he likes to show how you could very easily, like, as a viewer, you almost might get bored if you're not like letting yourself kind of get immersed in the situation itself.
Yes.
But if you let yourself get immersed in, again, if you don't need the movie to hold your hand with music and whatnot, because you could put music over that part where they're waiting and make a simple viewer more in tune with what's going on. But if you're paying attention to what's happening, this should be very tense. You're waiting, it's like, oh, is he going to make it out?
Oh, hey there. Hello.
Hola. Hey.
And they have that cave shot, right? So it's just it's like a gaping mouth high up on the hill.
Let me go back to that.
Yeah, White Bear knows about gaping mouths.
Oh no, I went too far. Hold on. I liked that shot
Apparently
too,
so did
though.
White Bear.
There we go.
Yeah, and that, you know, so it's like an inaccessible place, kind of. It kind of reminds me of that cave, Thulsa Doom's cave from Conan, a little bit.
Oh,
you know,
I just seeing this shot, like it shouldn't. Maybe that's intentional, but like this just looks terrifying. Like it looks like a giant eye looking down at you.
Exactly, an eye or a mouth or something, right?
Or even like the opening to a hive or something. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
a lot of imagery you could allude to for this just one simple
It's
little
definitely a layer.
dirt.
Yeah. So they figure. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just about to say, from where we were earlier, like just within 20 seconds, that's when we get our first full view of one of the troglodytes and all that. And it just kind of happens so fast. It's like, here we are.
Yeah,
the violence is incredibly sudden. Like you have no indication it's coming. It just boom, it happens.
Yeah.
Now the only part, like, and this is probably like the only like really noteworthy criticism I would have is, okay, so Matthew Fox's character, Bruder, loses his hand here. I do more or less know what happened, but it's not shot very well, so it could be difficult to discern.
Yeah, you don't. It's quick.
You see a weapon come down on his hand. And the way it's shot, it looks like somebody slams it down on his hand, but the next shot shows there's really no troglodyte close enough for them to.
They threw like a hatch.
Right. Now I think because of the way he dies, I think the indication is probably that same one. Or just another one.
His hand is gone.
Yeah, he threw it accurately.
Yeah. Go back 10 seconds.
The way it's shot, it looks like
when the moment happens.
Right. It's
the way it happens. It makes you think,
it's like maybe a half a second, and then his hand's on the ground. Also, the arrows hit, and his hand gets cut off about at the exact same moment.
So
And
it's
just
shot in a way to where
exactly
you
how-
could almost like question the logic of it. It's just you have to suss out a lot to figure out. It's like, okay, it does make some sense. I mean, it's a very accurate throw. So, but,
And also, Chicory got hit on the head with something like a.
he got
got a
hit in
rock
the head
on
with
him.
a rock, and
Like a
then
You
rock.
got
like
fucking skinned. What do you mean?
Yeah.
Oh,
just about like 10
Yeah, it
feet
was an
away
arrow,
from
wasn't
Mhm.
Kurt Russell is dude's hand just sitting there in the scene, and you wouldn't really notice it
Mhm.
unless you're looking for it. But his whole hand and part of his shirt is just sitting right there.
Mhm.
And that's what we were talking about earlier about how, in a way, it's subtle and not overly focused on the violence in these scenes, which kind of makes it better in a way.
yeah, and he goes into shock. Now
Yeah.
the acting is great because he goes into shock almost immediately, where he's just
Oh,
like,
yeah.
"Oh my gosh!" I mean, he's sweating and shuddering and whatnot. So the
I like
acting's
that.
great.
Yeah, and it's just like they want to help him, and then he just makes a sign, just like I'm too vain to live life as a cripple.
Yeah,
Yeah,
basically,
cripple.
give me dynamite, and they're like, "Oh, I have to sacrifice."
Yeah,
But he-
for some
he-
reason they
I
brought.
think he's
a
trying to
bunch of
play it
dynamite
off
with
more than anything. Like, I'm too vain to
Yeah.
live as a cripple. But I think it's more he's like, there's no way I'm gonna make it because you get your hand
No.
cut off like that. You're probably gonna bleed out and die there.
Yeah,
I mean,
How you
he
gonna
doesn't
jerk
have much
off?
chance of living
Come on.
anyway.
right.
Sorry, Shieldwall, what were you gonna say?
I was saying for some reason they brought a bunch of dynamite with them. So
Yeah, that was
why
a
you would bring a dynamite on a rescue, but
yeah, because they didn't even mention that in the conversation back at the saloon or the town hall too.
Are they gonna
but
blow
they-
up the cave? Is that like part of the? Was that like?
I think if you don't know what you're walking into, it's not the worst idea.
Yeah, I was
Right.
gonna say you throw a
they,
few
they,
sticks
did, they
of
had no
dynamite
idea
in.
where they were at. They didn't know anything about
Mhm.
a cave or nothing. They were probably
Right.
thinking it was a bunch of like teepees or lodges or something.
Right.
Yeah.
You know.
So here's where he's poking the dead body because it's like he can hear the wheezing coming out. There's like a bone in the throat there, and that's how they're making those kind of like
dude.
demonic calls and whatnot.
Oh.
But yeah, so they leave Bruder behind with some dynamite. He's got his repeater here, and he's just like, I'm gonna take out as many as I can. Like it's the least I can do, sort of deal. And we hear one lone gunshot. We
Mhm.
see one approach, and then the scene cuts quickly to
Mhm.
just the
Yeah,
landscape.
right
and
as it throws its tomahawk at him. So
Yeah.
it's like they kind of happen like the throw,
that's
then the
wild.
shot, and then they show later what happened.
I really wish there had been more
Mhm.
brooder action, more like just because you grow as you watch this more and more. You like
Yeah.
I hate these things even more. I wish I could have seen Brooder just shoot about 40.
So Chicory and Hunt continue on, and they get ambushed by two of the troglodytes, and there is a bit of a struggle, and one of them just tries to shove this bone like into
Bro.
his mouth, and finally the
Oh.
other one just like he knocks out Chicory, knocks out Hunt, and then you kind of just like, oh no, like are they gonna survive or whatnot? And they get dragged off, right?
I thought that he was dead when he was shoving it.
Right.
Trying to make
Dude.
I thought that too. Yeah, the first
Like,
time.
you can't do that to Kurt.
Not with that mustache.
But like even
No.
like the non-bloody actions of these people are awful.
Dude,
I mean, like them
visceral.
shoving that bone in his mouth like that, it's like, it's
Just
hard
watching
to
him,
watch.
watching him gasp for air as they're choking, and he can't do anything about it. Like that helpless feeling, is they're so strong that you can't even push his hands away, and he's like just doing that noise, trying to fight for air. It's like, oh, it was giving me, it was fucking
It's
bothering.
like the dude trying to
the-
stuff the
the
roll up
autism was
magazine.
flaring.
They got that tarred strength.
Yeah.
So they whistle up to the cave, right? And the cave throws down these rope ladders and they drag up the guys, right? And they've got kind of these little what's it called? These little prisons sort of ready for all of their stock, I guess is what you could call it, because these are
Yeah.
cannibals, right?
Mhm.
And they come to see that, oh, Mrs. O'Dwyer is still alive and Nick is still alive too, but Nick seems to be just incapacitated because I think it's been 3 to 4 days now since they were taken, right?
Mhm. That and he probably tried to fight them a bit because he looks like he's a bit beat up
He
in the
looked like
face,
it.
so he's in a bad way.
Yeah.
Well, he's
So
about to
here
be
you
worse.
hear, the creepy screeching, and this is kind of like I guess like the clan leader, because he's got the notable tusks in his face, and they even when they're asking like how many are there, oh, there's about 12, and then there's the guy with the boar tusks. So it looks like he's the leader. But Mrs. O'Dwyer even explains, I think it's here as well, that like there's 2 females but they're disabled and they have
They're
their
crippled and
eyes.
blind.
She says
Yeah.
crippled and blind, so you don't get to see like what she's talking about till the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Which for me was actually probably one of the most shocking parts of the movie when I saw it.
I agree with you,
it's
because it's
shocking,
like
it's shocking and it's ominous because you're like, that probably would have been her fate.
right. And I
Yep.
was just thinking, like, it's like the depravity of this clan doesn't just extend to cannibalism. It's like they even butchered the people that they're procreating with, which was insane. So after a little while, the troglodytes come back, and Nick is kind of like he's really out of it. And we don't get any male nudity. It's all shaded out and whatnot. But
Nowadays he would have been dangling, and they would have been, they would have dragged it out and did all kinds of stuff.
Oh yeah, but they're very quick with it, and Hunt is just like, don't worry, Nick. Like there's a backup party coming, the National Guard or something like that. Like you will be avenged. Like don't worry. And Nick is like, hey, can you just like make sure my stuff gets back to Michigan? Most of it is my brother's. And this is probably one of the more iconic parts of this movie. So they string up. Can I show this? Should I?
No.
Should I stop sharing for a moment? Or
Yeah.
Okay.
Just scrub past it.
They scalp him. They cut across his forehead. I'll explain it. And they rip the entire top of his head
That was
hair
hard to
off.
watch.
Then they crumple it up, and they take a spike and they stuff in it. They stuff his own scalp in his mouth. Then they take a spike and jam it in there. So I think that pierces into the back of his throat. Then they turn him upside down, spread him apart, and then hack him in half with the big hatchet thing. And somewhere in that process, he dies. I think he's still alive when they got him.
After the first two smacks.
The sound design.
I honestly don't think he's dead until they pull.
He's still screaming when they pull him apart.
So when they pull him apart, like all his innards kind of vomit out his butthole area,
it's rough. It's pretty rough, y'all.
And then they sit here at this fire pit and cook them and eat them while everyone has to watch.
Yep.
But they don't really show that. If this really wanted to go like Cannibal Holocaust level, they could have done that. But
so after the eating is all done and whatnot, Chicory's just like, hey, like, why did you say that? And like, is there a backup plan? And then he's like, no one else is coming. But
he's like, I hope you really had a super secret backup plan.
Right. And Hunt's just like, listen, that's what I would want to hear if I were in that situation. I'd want to go out with, a little hope that I was going to be avenged and whatnot, right? And I believe it's here. Mrs. O'Dwyer's like, where's my husband? Where's Arthur? And he's like, he came along, but we left him by a riverbank or whatever. He's injured more. And he's like, we left him a pathway though. And she's like, to this place. And she has a line like, it's like, life on the frontier isn't hard because of natives. It's because of idiots. And it's like, which I thought was she's not wrong, right?
Yep. Life is hard.
Well, she knows he's crippled, so it's like he can't really do much. Well, he doesn't. She doesn't think he can do much, but he holds his own.
Right. And they're just explaining, like, listen, like, we couldn't convince him otherwise. Like, he wanted to come along, and she's like, yeah, I get it. And she kind of like stonewalls them here a little bit. After telling, there's this many, a couple females and whatnot, so they have an idea of what they got to fight on their way out, right? So I think at this point, so they haven't been stripped of any of their belongings. So they remember that they gave a portion of opium to leave with Arthur, and they took the rest of it. So they're just like, we can. And remember that if you drink too much, that's why you have to be very careful with opium. If you ingest too much, then it can actually kill you. So they're just like, okay, let's see if we can try and get these guys to drink this. We can probably poison like 3 of them, and that will help us, whatever. So finally, it's about the next day or so, and Arthur wakes up and he's all like, "Ooh, my opium, ooh." And
Ooh, my opium.
The difference between the opium that he's taking and like morphine that comes powdered and you liquefy and inject it or whatever is that this kind of opium will make you very sleepy.
Yeah.
Whereas refined morphine kind of won't do that. It'll just
Oh, I gotcha.
right.
It'll just take the pain away, but it won't do much
Right,
help.
but it won't. I mean, it'll make you a little loopy and stuff. But the tincture is designed to kind of make you go to sleep, so they can operate on you and stuff. It's like supposed to knock you out.
What's
So,
funny is here also there is a couple of funny lines that he gets, though it gives you an idea of the passage of time. So we just saw him at night when he's up that
Passage of
hill.
time?
Yeah, but he's going up that slope, and it's aggravating him. He's like, stupid slope, and then he falls down it, and he takes opium for the pain, and he probably wakes up later than he intended. Because then he's walking. He's like, stupid opium.
Right, he's doing
Right,
doing the Philadelphia zombie right here.
Yeah, but
That's funny.
So Arthur kind of like he catches up clearly because this is where the fellas have been, and he hears something in the distance, so he starts to feign like weakness almost, like that's what's happening here. And then like very quickly he pulls out his gun, and he actually he takes out one of them right here, and right before he does, he's just like he talks to God a little bit.
praise for help.
Right.
Yep.
Which I don't know about you all, but I'm like I kind of feel like he got a lot of help in this.
Oh yeah, 100%. So he just starts like because his leg is still aggravating him, right? So he just starts crawling around everywhere, and he finds this little bush that he hides in, and he just kind of passes out here. Which is just, like everything that happens to this guy, just dumb luck at this point. It's dumb luck moving forward.
Well, he asked for help.
Oh.
It's like he asked for help, and he gets it. I think it's like he gets.
That's true.
I mean,
that's true.
I think he's kind of half asleep here, but it's like he's like, gosh, I got to rest. I think the opium is still not quite
Right.
get it out from him. So
this is where they start pretending to fight over the flask, so that these guys will come be like, hey, what is this? And then this guy he pours some out, then he drinks some. He gives the next guy, that guy drinks some and spits some out, and then gives to the last guy, that guy drinks a little bit, and then they throw the flask onto the coals or next to the coals.
No, it's onto the coals, onto the coals, yeah.
Onto it.
And they all walk out, and Mrs. O'Dwyer is just like, well, judging by how much they drank and how much they poured out, you'll get the first one. The second one is a maybe, but the third one definitely won't die. So my husband will have more to deal with, unfortunately. So here we have more of the troglodytes come out, and Arthur seems to wake up just in time, and he's
stirred by it, like because one of them I think throws something, so that stirs him.
They shoot at his hat, but he had slid down, so his hat's above.
Missed him.
So they missed him, which gives him a chance because the guy's got a bow and arrow, he's got to reload it, and so he takes a bunch of shots at him.
He hits him though, doesn't he? And then he
does. He hits one guy, and then he's
the other one
guy
kind of quick,
and he blows the bow in half. So then he has to reload real quick, which he does, and then he shoots the guy because that guy's trying to figure out, like what to do or whatever. And then now, for whatever reason, he's like, I'm interested in this throat thing, and he's going to cut it apart.
This was
This is where I had a question. Initially, the very first time I saw this movie, I thought that these guys were inputting like this into their throat on their own, like it was something that they were doing. But now, the way I see it, and it's got all these tendons and stuff attached to it, I think it's trying to say that these are a different species altogether.
That's what I got from it too, because like the tendons and stuff, that's what gave it away for me. Because like otherwise, if it were
you'd be able to implant, then it wouldn't have all that stuff on it.
Right.
It's a good point, actually. I never thought of that.
It's messed up either way. It's
no, thank you. They're aliens.
Like cool.
It plays nicely because like again, this is kind of one of the few instances where like it gets a little heavy on the talking to God and whatnot, and God protecting him. So it's almost as though Arthur is fighting demons himself, so it adds to that whole.
See, that's more what I don't necessarily think it's necessarily like a different species. They're still men, but it's like it's a combination of inbreeding and mysticism. I guess is more the way I.
You mean y'all didn't have one of those when you were growing up?
Sorry, Whitey, no.
Oh.
There's also talking about the religious symbolism. Later on, you'll see that a crucifix falls out of his shirt and just kind of dangles there.
Yep.
And it's
Yep.
reflecting light.
I think it's actually right after he says that he was asking for help. You see it fall out like the very.
You do. Yeah. So he finds the pathway where Chicory and Hunt were ambushed, and he sees all their stuff. So he's like, "Oh, there must be another way." And so
Right, he's like, "I'm not
I think
going
his
through
great
that
line was
gap."
this is where it capsized.
Right. And he's like, "I'm going to go around the back way." He doesn't want to go in that way. And this is when he pulls this thing out and, man, wash it off first or something. Come on.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't think
disgusting.
I don't think he got no water. Yeah, this is crazy. This is crazy.
Oh. And he- I know
Spits
some women
all
who
out.
make that face.
So, but he knows, right?
Keep
'Cause
in mind, modern germ theory was still young at the time.
But again, I do, because Andy or Arthur has a nice arc here, right? Where it's just like you kind of think that he's just a bumbling idiot for most of the movie, but no, he's actually quite intuitive regardless of everything. So he blows that, and he knows that that will be a call, and he ends up killing one of them here as a result.
Right. It causes, because that guy comes running and be like, "Hey, what's going on?" And this is where he wastes a gun. I wouldn't have wasted a bullet.
Wasted a bullet? Yeah, he's already dead.
Nope.
Yeah.
Well, I think part of the reason they show it is it's showing that he's still, because I looking at that one, I think the impression you're supposed to get is that this is a young one.
I'm
so
not
he
saying I
kinda
wouldn't
takes pity
kill
on
it. I just would use the.
Oh no, I'm just saying
do
it. I think the perspective that is for the movie is like he takes pity on because like this is a younger.
He's
one.
merciful.
Yeah,
he's
just showing
merciful.
mercy.
So yeah, he had come across the burial site that we saw in the beginning, which again, remember that Purvis and Buddy, they had desecrated that, and that's why the troglodytes ended up coming to Bright Hope, because they tracked Purvis down there, right?
If you saw it in the very beginning, they get scared and they try to back up or something, and it knocks some of the stones over.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that sets the.
Yep, you got it.
The deputy was telling him that too earlier, like, hey, those two did a lot of bad things, and basically you get the idea. Yeah.
So here, Chicory's telling a story, I think, about a circus, if I remember correctly.
Flea circus.
So, and he's like, I took my wife, and we could look through the magnifying glass, and I couldn't really see if they were moving, because for anybody who doesn't know, back then a flea circus was people took little fleas, they were dead, and they glued them on stuff, and then they had a mechanical thing underneath so that it looked like they were moving around and on Ferris wheels and jumping things, but it was all like fake. It wasn't a real, they weren't really live fleas. They were just dead ones that were, like embalmed and glued on stuff. And then they would turn a handle on the table and it would make the things move around. And he's like, she said it was fake, but I thought it was real. And then the lady, what's her name? The other lady in the cage is like, well, most of them are fake, but that one was real. And he's like, oh, good. So basically, she just told him it was real, so he'd feel better about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like, we're gonna die, so it's I'm gonna try to let him be a little bit happier before they cut him up and eat him.
And now what the sheriff did.
Now they come and pull the sheriff out, and he tries to stop him, but he
well, and the tribal leader is kind of taking revenge on him. But I had one friend who saw this. He goes, "Why did he shove this flask into him?" I was like, "Because he poisoned 3 of them. That's what he's doing."
Oh, that was brutal, man.
Revenge.
Oh god, that was brutal.
That's not some arbitrary just being brutal for no reason. It's like it's like he's like, "Oh,
payback.
You killed him. This payback."
And if you notice how he did the cut, it didn't go through all the muscle wall so that the intestines came out. So there was like muscle underneath where he put the thing in. So it's not a fatal wound, right? And since it was hot, it kind of cauterized it. Bleed out.
So they were trying to shoot him, right? And this guy doesn't know how to reload the gun or anything.
He shot him in the arm, and then he was going to shoot him in the junk, but it wouldn't. He didn't.
Yeah.
Went click.
Didn't know how to reload it.
Yeah. So he didn't know how to reload it.
And then finally he does, and he shoots Hunt in the torso.
Oh.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, also there was a point where when they were pulling the deputy out, he had his hands on the bars and he was like, "Don't do that," and they cut like 3 of his fingers off. So
Yes,
he,
yes.
yeah, so
Yeah,
he got like
yeah.
fingers missing. He had an arrow in his arm.
So yeah, and Arthur finally catches up and he shoots the guy that is on top of Hunt and whatnot, and
Mhm,
there's a nice reunion between him and his wife and
mhm.
all this stuff, and he finally notices that the sheriff is over there, and he's like,
But the
"Sheriff."
sheriff does. He takes that axe thing and he cuts that guy's head off.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was good.
Which was cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it needed to happen.
Yeah, we needed to see
You
it
can't
happen,
just
yeah.
you can't just near end Kurt Russell without
Him getting
Going out
revenge.
with a bang, you know.
One thing that kind of flipping through this is when he comes in after he kills that guy. In my opinion, he spent way too much time talking to him instead of getting him out of the cage, so that he
Yeah.
could help.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. But anyway, so then he says, "Yeah, just give me the gun and leave me here because, I'm not going to make it, and
Yep.
I'm going to kill the other ones."
It's the official opinion.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, because there were still, I think, 3 that were left, and it's just
Mhm.
like, you guys need to get out. I'll take care of them. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
gonna make it. And he says a nice line here. He's just like, say goodbye to my wife. I'll say hello to yours.
Yeah, that was a
Such
great dialogue.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which it didn't sound sad at all. It just sounded like oddly hopeful because like Nadine is such a big part of Chicory's life and still is even in her death, and it was just it was nice. Oh, here's where you get the breeders.
Oh God.
Yeah.
So right.
This is,
So they've got no arms and legs. Well, at the elbows and knees, and they got pegs stuffed in their eyes.
They're blind, yeah.
And they're
Right.
pregnant on top of that.
That's great.
Which is crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's pretty messed up.
Yeah.
And
So they
part of
get
the
out of
reason I think they're alluding to it being that would have likely been her fate is the fact that they show, like, when they show her looking down at it, I think that's the films where it's like, this is what she had in store for her in all likelihood. It's like, ooh.
That's why they kept her alive, yeah.
Yeah.
So they get out of the cave, they kind of walk through this burial site kind of deal because there's no one left, right? It doesn't matter at this point. And as they're walking off, she's just like, I'd like a proper kiss, a proper reunion and whatnot now that we're, but you've been putting those things in your mouth.
Well, she already kissed him through the cage when he first got there, so too late.
No tongue though.
Yeah.
Well, that wasn't a proper kiss. That was between
No,
bars.
this is-
that was
Right.
a conjugal visit.
Uh-huh.
And then Chicory looks up and you can hear 3 distinct gunshots go off in the distance, meaning that Kurt Russell took out the final 3 troglodytes, and
Mhm.
Bright Hope is now safe.
Oh.
And
Beautiful.
4 doomed men rides out as the credits play.
Beautiful.
And I can't remember because I know, from what I understand, I don't know if this was in the original script or not, but I want to say like Arthur blows on that thing again one last time. I don't think it's in the film, but he does to see if there's a call back, and there isn't. Like as a way to confirm what happened.
Right.
Oh, that would have actually been smart.
Yeah. I think I read somewhere that they did a bunch of different scripts for this, and this movie wound up being the original script that they did.
Yeah.
Like, I have that in the trivia. Yep.
Oh, what about the cave?
What about the cave?
That's the same cave that they did for.
I've got that. I've got that in
okay.
trivia as well. Hey,
Trivia.
I just want to throw this out there, seeing as how we're all, at least I'm a fan of Westerns, is if this had been a different Arthur, this would have went totally different. All those guys would have been dead in like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
That's so true.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is Bone Tony Hawk.
Mm-hmm.
Bone Tony Hawk, yes.
Yeah.
Excellent movie.
But
So
it is a good movie.
There's just a little bit of trivia. There's not a whole lot that I could find on this. So this film got a limited release on October 23rd, 2015, and it grossed just over $480,000 in theaters internationally, and 4.3 million in home media sales against a budget of 1.8 million. which is pretty
Wow.
good. So it made
Not
money
bad.
either way. Yeah.
Mhm.
And continues to as people buy it.
Yep. In 2015, Zahler? Zahler. Oh, thank you. Watched 19 films in 2 weeks at a Westerns festival at the Film Forum. On seeing a film he didn't like, he began to think about how he would improve it and decided to write novels and screenplays in the genre. The
Mhm.
concept of Bone
Jesus.
Tomahawk
Wow.
arose when Zahler's manager, producer, and friend Dallas Sonnier proposed that he make a film adaptation of his novel's Race of the Broken Land, directed by Zahler himself. However, Zahler believed that the novel could not be adapted on a low budget and opted to write a rescue western, Bone Tomahawk, instead.
Nice.
Yeah,
And I've said this many
Why-
times.
yeah, why not be a
Read
good
that
movie?
book. That's a dang good book.
Is it about like cannibal natives? And
No,
stuff?
Race of a Broken Land is not the same story as this. It is a rescue western, but it's more about rescuing. It's a family rescuing their daughters from it's kind of a rich person / cartel sex club type deal. It's pretty messed up. I'm not gonna lie. It's a
Oh,
messy
so it's like a
story,
human
but it's-
trafficking story then.
Yeah, kind of. It's I
Okay.
think it's set in like the 50s maybe or something like that. But
Okay.
dang
Okay.
good movie, dang good book.
But
I hope it's gonna be a good movie. I
Western?
doubt it though.
Mm.
I think Ridley Scott will ruin it.
Oh
Okay.
God. Ugh.
All right. So this script was finished in 2007.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sat around for a while. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Despite Sonner's assurances that there would be no intervention on the script, investors still wanted it to be changed due to conflicting interpretations of the film's genre and the
Mhm.
film being Zahler's directorial debut. Zahler refused to compromise on full creative control and reducing the film length to 90 minutes. Due to budget constraints, a substantial amount of content in the script did not make it into the final film, though the final version of the film is based on the first draft of the script.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. You don't get a lot of those. Nope.
Nope.
Mhm.
Not anymore.
This was shot in 21 days in Southern California.
Holy crap!
That's
Wow.
impressive.
Wow.
Yes, that's so awesome.
Yeah, because the town looked like almost like a TV set to me.
Yeah, it was probably most likely was a leftover set, especially with the budget concerns. Because I did see elsewhere in the trivia that they did look at like places in Utah and other areas in the Midwest, but they probably settled on California because of
Sorry, Whitey's killing me.
It's
Yeah.
called Art or Art Morgan. to be
It's-
precise.
This is Velocipaster level greatness right
Yeah.
here.
Mhm.
Yep, exactly.
This is Red Dead the musical.
Matthew Fox has publicly stated multiple times that this was his favorite film to work on, as he always wanted to act in a Western.
And
He
he's
was
freaking great in
fantastic.
it.
Oh my
He was
God.
great in it. Yep.
Mhm.
At Fantastic Fest, Zahler said that he wanted much of the film's mysticism to remain ambiguous and debatable intentionally.
I like that.
I like it too.
Smart.
It works. Mhm.
Yep.
The burial ground of the troglodytes is an obvious homage to the Indian burial ground from Pet Sematary, which I actually totally see after I read
Now.
this piece of trivia. Yeah.
Yeah, now that you say that.
And the cave set in the last act of the movie is the same cave set used in 2008's Iron Man, where Tony Stark is held captive and constructs the first Iron Man suit.
Nice.
And was also held captive by troglodytes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, of a different kind.
Tony Hawk could have built this with a half pipe.
Oh God.
Bone Tony Stark.
I do have a little bit, teeny tiny bit of trivia or casting trivia
Casting?
for this as well. Yeah.
Mhm.
You know what? Finally, for once,
Wait, don't even say it.
Christopher Walken is not on the trivia.
Damn it! This is bullshit. I'm done. I'm leaving. This is bullshit. Fuck, man.
All right. So when this movie was officially announced in October 2012, Peter Sarsgaard and Jennifer Carpenter were set to play the O'Dwyers, while Timothy Oliphant was going to play John Bruder.
Which
Oh,
I mean, as much as I would have liked that and think it would have worked, I am glad Matthew Fox got to show off his acting chops because I always thought he was an underrated actor. And I was
Timothy
I
Olyphant,
think he
though?
really puts on an excellent performance here.
There's a couple of people. Do you think that you think could have played that role?
I mean, I think Oliphant could have played it. I mean, I think he would have been a great choice. I think he would have, but I mean, I'm glad Fox got to.
Yeah, you know who else I think would have been good in that? Would have been Walter Goggins.
Yeah, well, my only issue with the idea of Walton Goggins is I almost feel like the type of charisma that needs to be displayed is a little less animated than we're used to seeing Goggins portray. I'm not saying he couldn't do it, but you wouldn't really be showing off Goggins at his best the same way. Although I would say this, I mean, casting Christopher Walken as the troglodytes, where instead of the screeches you're hearing, wow, every time they call out, would have been amazing.
Wow.
No,
it's gonna taste better than human.
No, Walken should have been the deputy, the sheriff deputy. That would have been
Chicory.
Great.
Yeah,
Chicory. You know, I saw some fleas in a circus a while ago.
All right, and I have two little more. I am actually glad that Peter Sarsgaard and Jennifer Carpenter weren't set to play the O'Dwyers because I like Peter Sarsgaard a lot, but he would not have brought what the character of Arthur needed for the screen. I think. What's his face? Patrick Wilson did a great job there, and Jennifer Carpenter, I like her as well, but she doesn't look like she fits the time period.
I agree. I think, and it's funny because eventually Carpenter and Zahler work together because she's in Bone Tomahawk. But I can't
in Dragon.
Well, I mean, Dragon Cross Concrete. Sorry.
Yeah.
And I don't mean this in a mean way or anything, but I kind of think you needed a prettier actress than her.
God.
Yeah, you need a. Which is, I mean, that's not to say she's ugly. She's pretty in her own way, but she's that very unique off the beat.
You need a more empirically attractive woman who kind of is any guy could look at her and say, "Yeah, she's hot." You kind of need because that's one thing that I think kind of connects the male audience there is you're like, oh yeah.
Exactly.
We have more recommendation. People want more Walken impressions.
You mean we want more cowbell?
Yes.
So Jim Broadbent replaced Richard Jenkins for a few months as Chicory when the project was initially delayed, but when the delay stopped, Jenkins was then recast as Chicory. So Jim Broadbent is a British actor. I'm sure you have seen him.
Oh yeah, he's in
I know
exactly. Harry Potter. Yeah, I mean, and Broadbent and him are like Broadbent and Jenkins are like just the across the channel versions of each other. So I can totally see either one of them playing it. But I think Jenkins is fantastic. So
and Michael Wincott was considered for the role of Buddy.
Oh, Jim Broadbent. He's great in Harry Potter. He's my favorite professor.
Not as good as this guy on the screen right now, though.
Yeah.
Wow.
Can you imagine him in Hogwarts?
Bro, oh God! Nobody touch my wizard staff.
Wizard staff. What Harry Potter are you watching?
I know. That's what Christopher Walken would say, though.
Yeah.
Hello.
Actually, we found Lance's doppelganger, and it's 90s rave. What's it? Gordon Ramsay. That's Lance.
That is so. Oh my God.
Hold on, I have to find that now.
Find that, please. That was classic.
Just for a little backstory to anybody in the chat, this picture got posted in our chat, and I think I piped up and I just said Lance. Hold
on. Oh, I got it. I bookmarked it.
How do you raid into chat? Does anybody know how to raid into Enzo's chat? I don't know how to do that.
You have to do it in the back end when you're setting up.
All right, next time.
Yeah, that's rating.
We love the back end.
All right, this is Lance. Okay.
Yeah, good job.
Sorry.
Oh, you're good. Look at this. Look at these people.
Because
Bit odd,
Lance
ain't
loves
it?
to rave, you know.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Oh,
Wait, is that Gordon Ramsay?
It is. It's Gordon Ramsay on all of them. Yeah.
Oh, that's Lance. That's not Gordon Ramsay. That's Lance. This is
Yeah,
before.
they posted that in the chat, and I was
What
just like,
year is
well,
that
Lance
from?
has been, at all these raves and stuff lately, and I just there's a bit of resemblance there. I was like, oh,
No,
right.
it's
my
someone
God.
someone took footage from a '90s rave and just AI'd Gordon Ramsay's
Oh,
face
yeah,
on
okay,
everyone.
that's
that's
really
the
him.
actual what they showed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my god.
freaking hilarious.
Oh, I can't get it out of my head.
Um,
It's right.
Yeah, so that's Bone Tomahawk. So I guess we will go round the bend and give our ratings. Shield Wall, we'll start with you. What would you rate this film?
I liked it. I think it's a solid 8 out of 10. Definitely I'd watch it once every 2 years or so. So I think it's, especially the first time you see it, it's pretty profound, especially with the ending, and you see the how the pregnant women are with the little pegs in their eyes. That was really creepy. And but I like a lot of what the through lines of this plot are, and it's about perseverance and facing the unknown, being true to your family and friends and all that kind of stuff. So I liked it. Plus it's a Western. You could tell that it's not pretentious. It isn't like, oh, we spent $200 million and it's a gay lesbian allegory for anything, like
yet.
every
Well,
movie
the
is
struggle-
these
never mind.
days.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just a good, fun movie. It doesn't, it's not trying to push some kind of message or something. And it's not overdone. Like, it has a good amount of violence, but not too much. And I think the story is good and the character development is good. So I really enjoyed it.
Nice.
And thanks for having me on to talk about it and review it.
Heck yeah.
Thank you. Bonus right there. Oh, I can't wait. Jesus.
Thank you, Shield Wall. No, it's our
Yeah,
pleasure always having you on. It's good to have you, bro. Whitey, wow, what would you rate this film and your final thoughts?
I'd have to give it like a, I don't know. It's hard between a 7.5 and an 8, just because it really did everything I felt like it was, set out to do. I was immersed in it, so it totally won me over in that way. It genuinely just creeped me out. If nobody was creeped out by this movie, like, you got problems. I mean, it made you feel kind of like it was something there and was really happening, or could really happen somehow. There's a lot kind of like left open to me that I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because it kind of makes the movie stick in my mind a little bit longer. Like, how did they know X, Y, and Z, and that something was disturbed, and I don't know. There's just a lot to kind of think about there, but I don't know. I really liked it. I liked the all the actors' choice and all the casting. The movie rocked for me, so I'll probably end up giving it an 8.
Nice. Wow.
Wow.
Gord, what would you rate this film and your final thoughts?
I also will give this movie an 8 out of 10. I think the only major issue I could see one having with this is pacing. The script is, the script is really, really good. It holds together well. The movie's, I think it improves on rewatch. This is probably the 5th time I've watched it, and I have liked it more and more every time. I think the character work is really well done. Even though it's done subtly, it's not done in your face, but you see, really good pronounced arcs with pretty much all of the major players. It is genuinely terrifying at times and a strong Western at others. I think it's thematically much richer than you might think the first time. And Yeah, this is a dang good movie. This is kind of a low budget classic as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10 limbless troglodytes.
Dang, I was gonna go with that one. Okay.
Oh. Okay, 8 out of 10 Tom Bonahawks.
Cannoli, sir, you were late, but still, give us your thoughts.
Yeah, I absolutely love this movie. I've seen this movie 3 times probably in the last year, and upon every rewatch, I like it more and more. I love the. I think Shieldwall was stating in the beginning of the stream that it's a slow burn, but it's done so well because you're kind of just hanging on to what's happening, especially because they set it up early with the troglodytes, like showing them kill, and then they're always in the forefront, even if they're not on screen. And then all the bad stuff starts happening, and the acting's great. I don't know. It's just one of those. Kurt Russell. How could you not like Kurt Russell, right? But everybody does a great job. The writing, the dialogue in this movie. Every time I watch it, I'm just like in awe of how well written this movie was. It's funny at times. Yeah, and the ending, the last 35 minutes just goes hard. You're like, what the hell? Where is this? How is this gonna? Where is this leading? This slow burn, and then I love how it goes just crazy the last 35 minutes of the movie because you're like, oh shit, it's just yeah. And then that ending scene was insane, and I like how they get away at the end. The three people that do survive deservedly needed to. So yeah, I give this an 8.5 out of 10. I think it's great, and it's definitely on the rewatch list to watch at least once or twice a year.
I just realized that Cannoli is the Arthur of this group today because he hobbled in late. We all 4 left stones for him, and he followed the trail back.
I follow my autism gimpiness. You guys helped me out. Thank you for that, by the way. Oh God, people are sick.
I'm gonna give this film. Yeah, I'm gonna go with a lot of you guys. It's gonna be 8 out of 10 hanging deputies split down the middle. It does get better with rewatch. I will agree there. I think the pacing is what holds it back. But again, on rewatch, you kind of forget all of that because everything is so intentional. Every conversation, every little story, every interaction with the characters, it all comes full circle by the end of the film. So I think this is like, it's less of an issue with pacing in the script and more just it's not for every audience. So I could see a lot of people getting bored with it because it does do that work, but I quite enjoy it. I actually wish it might have leaned into the horror elements a little bit more, but perhaps it's best it didn't because I do like that ambiguity that is around the troglodytes and what they do. So
yeah,
solid modern Western film. The sets are great. The costumes are great. Every character is well acted and well cast. Yeah, I can't really say anything. I just kind of want more, even though it's over 2 hours. I want more, which is
right.
weird. Yeah,
like the only thing, like I could understand if somebody said maybe they could have intercut some of the more mundane elements with what's going on in the cave, like maybe show what's his face get eaten or whatever. It's like, okay, you could maybe make that argument, but I mean, I could still counter that saying I think it's better that you don't know until you get there, but I could understand somebody having that complaint.
yeah. I think it all depends on the audience at the end of the day. That's all.
Right.
Oh, and I do quite enjoy that this is a very masculine film in which it kind of explores a few different male archetypes and roles, but it doesn't undermine them at all, and they all kind of flourish in their own respects. So it's a very male centric movie, which I can appreciate.
And everybody had their own competencies. Like, and his wife wasn't just some marginalized thing. She could heal people, and she had her own opinions about him falling off the roof, and men being she didn't say men, she just said stupid people.
Yeah.
And when she was in the cage, and I like that. Like, so they didn't steal anyone's agency, or they didn't have to belittle all the men to make her look stronger, or she just wasn't some completely helpless damsel. You know what I mean? Like, she used her intelligence to help them, and her knowledge to kind of, she just didn't sit there and scream,
Right.
basically.
It's
Which was good.
she just kind of was like a wife. Like, there's many times where I've had like that similar conversation with my own husband, where she's like, "Well, if you didn't do this, or why did you do?" So it's
like this weekend.
yeah, like this weekend, yeah. So it's it's relatable. It's not trying to step on
Wait,
anyone.
did your husband fall off the roof?
No, he just did some stupid things that got me really angry a couple days ago.
Yeah.
Wrong hole, mother.
Wow.
All right. So I guess that's also, if you guys want to just shout out where you'll be, Shield Wall, we'll start with you. You got anything coming up?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Thank you. So tomorrow I'll be on Jacob Ironside's channel, and we'll be going over the 1990 movie Tremors, which is another great
classic
banger of a movie.
Yeah,
that's another lower budget movie that just kind of came out of nowhere, and is a cult classic now. And on Thursday I'll be on Rome of the Empire's channel, where we will be talking about our favorite supernatural movies. So that's like The Exorcist, Devils, and
Nice.
things like that, Omen, stuff like that. So and that's part of the month-long series that he's doing on his channel for Halloween. So tune into that if you like.
Nice.
And again, thanks for having me on. This is a lot of fun. It's always
Of course, buddy.
great talking with you guys and seeing what people think, and watching White Bear's background.
We missed this last week so much.
Yeah.
Oh God.
But
Very nice.
again, thanks for having me on.
It's
course,
always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. We was Shield Walls. What have you got?
Let's see.
What the hell is
I got.
I'm really confused by this one. Hold on.
Fucking prawns. Sorry, I mean, freaking prawns. Prawns.
It's all right, Whitey. I already ruined the whole cursing thing. That I came
Oh,
on.
okay. Well,
not everybody.
That's true.
Whatever. You are white. Let's see. So I will be working on 2 videos this week, and let's see. I think 2 of them are already voiced up and everything, so all that's recorded. I think, and they should be out this week. Last week was kind of crazy stuff. Anyways, I'll have 2 videos out on the Bear Clan channel, so check those out.
What's the Bear Clan? White Bear Clan? Is that it?
No, it's just Bear Clan.
That doesn't sound racist at all. The White
Bear
Bear Clan channel.
Yeah.
Do you have a link to that at all? Because I can't
You're
I
not
can't
subscribed to
find
the
that.
Bear Clan?
So I can post it. That's why.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Post it.
Post.
But yeah. So I'll be working on that. It'll be it's just basically some fun little things that we're doing with editing sprites and game footage and making comedy out of it. It's been really fun. So
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah,
it's gonna be good.
Nice. Very nice. Very nice. Gordison, what do you got coming up?
Let's see. Tomorrow I will be on Paradise with Leon and Sammy Threepeat on their little tinfoil conspiracy theory show that they do. I think that's at 8 p.m. Eastern, I want to say. And I think we're supposed to be talking about something about like ancient astronauts or something like that. I have no freaking idea. I'm not a conspiracy guy, but they wanted me on. I was like, yeah, sure. And also, I'll have my gaming streams going on and whatnot. And also this week, either Wednesday or Friday, probably Friday, still going to shoot for Wednesday, I will have my next Poorly Explained coming out, where I will be discussing the season 1 arc of Galadriel from Rings of Power. So
Nice.
Yay.
That'll get you some nice views. Nice.
yeah.
Yep.
All right. Cannoli, what do you got coming up?
Actually, believe it or not, I am on a show Friday night, but I am on the Inside the Badger Den on Angry Badgers channel at 9 p.m. Pacific time. Yeah. So that's a fun time over there. They do a lot of fun stuff, pop culture stuff. So I'm going to be there with a bunch of people on his channel. And then Monday back here, of course, on the 14th, we're doing Near Dark.
Yeah.
1987 cult classic. I have not rewatched that. Well, Gord picked a movie that I like, but it's not streaming anywhere in the known universe. So I have to.
And its Blu-ray is really freaking hard to find. I am.
You can't find anything.
That movie. That movie
this will be like Legend.
$100 now, brand new.
Yeah, I have to go through the Indian cinema to watch that this weekend, but I'm looking forward to it because I do like that movie. It is hilarious and it's fun. It's a fun watch. So
I wouldn't call it hilarious. I mean, it has some fun.
It's got funny. Well, Bill Paxton's funny. I like him in that movie. But yeah, it's good. It's good. It's a good movie. Actually, go watch it. It's Halloween time, so let's get scary, people. And I think we have first time on the channel. Blaine from Criticless is on that show. And then I think Sammy as well, if I have my calendar correct. So
I think he wanted to be on.
Yeah, so Sammy and him, it's going to be a good panel. It's going to be a lot of fun. So 9 p.m. Eastern time, next Monday. Find us here.
Nice. And Cannoli will be back hosting as well.
Yes, I will.
As for me, I have a Joker 2 review to finish. I was hoping to get it out today. But I'm just going to post it up once it's finished in the next hour or so. I'm not going to premiere it or anything, so you can check that out. I'll tweet it out and whatnot. Tomorrow I'll be on Gooch's channel, Diabolical Souls Presents. We're doing, I believe, episodes 5 and 6 of Invincible season 2. So that'll be 10 p.m. Eastern. I think I might be on the Night Owl after that with Price of Reason on his channel. Because it's been a while since I've been back there and since I am on quote unquote vacation. I have some time to
yeah, that's a good show.
So are you back in the land of the Maple Leaf or?
No, I'm in the South right now.
Okay.
But I fly back on Sunday.
Oh.
All right.
Yeah. Just temporary for now, unfortunately. But my
You're
vacation.
not in the hurricane path, are you?
No. We're in the Panhandle. So Milton looks like it's hitting Central Florida.
Right. Yeah, it's going past Tampa or whatever.
Yeah.
She should be okay.
Oh well, that explains the whole mold thing you were talking about.
No, the mold thing is another thing. We won't get into that. But that's why my Joker 2 review didn't come out yesterday. It should have been out yesterday.
Joker fully in you.
It's not even fully in you. It's like if someone was trying to bone you with a spaghetti noodle. If it's in you, like you're nothing.
Wow.
Nothing.
Bone tomahawk.
Yeah. Limp tomahawk. There you go. So yeah, that's all. Thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you, Shieldwall, for being our guest as well.
Yeah, no problem.
I suppose I will see. We'll see all of you next Monday, same time, same place, for another spoopy movie. Bye.
Bye.